Hello YouTubers, this is Pedro at Large speaking, and heard me talk a number of times about respecting other people's faiths, and I stand by that. But there comes a time when sometimes people or a group of people cross a line, and civilized society has to say, you've gone too far. A report here from the BBC, and it's concerning two most recent bombings in Baghdad, where the security chief, or rather the Iraqi security spokesman, made the point that the suicide bombers, two suicide bombers who went into two markets, one a pet market and the other a carpet market, well, they weren't actually suicide bombers, because although they had the explosives strapped to their body, they were both mentally disabled women, and they weren't in a state of mind to make a decision to die for some cause. Furthermore, they didn't trigger the explosives. That was done by remote control. Now, it's assumed that these people were Al-Qaeda or were sent out by Al-Qaeda terrorists, and as we know, Al-Qaeda sets itself out to be the cutting edge of Islam. But that's one thing that's happened. But also something's happened in England, and that is there's a bishop by the name of the Reverend Dr. Michael Nazir-Al, who gave a warning that some areas in Britain were becoming no-go areas because of the activities or the attitudes shown by Muslims, where they were the sort of dominant population group in an area, in a town, and that people felt threatened and didn't feel at ease in that neighbourhood. Now, I've heard interviews with people who live in such neighbourhoods, and they actually confirmed what the bishop was saying, although it has to be said that the usual suspects, the usual liberals, leapt up and condemned him for saying that, but that's mainly because they probably live in La La Land rather than England. Now, when you've got two totally different events like this, it needs to be unwrapped a bit. First of all, we have people who would claim to be pure Islam in Baghdad, and they have sunk so low as to pick upon two mentally disabled people, strap bombs to them, send them into a marketplace and detonate them. I just find that horrific. It just smacks of the worst depraved, degraded way that humans behave. With regard to the bishop, he was expressing in a public media the genuine concerns that he felt that a number of people living in Britain had. And he was expressing those concerns honestly and openly. So what's the big deal? The big deal is he's now under police protection. Now, I don't suppose it's a bunch of Christians or Jews or Hindus or Buddhists or Mormons or Jehovah's Witnesses who have caused that to happen. It might just be a threat from the very people he said intimidated people. So let's go back to the whole situation. We all know that much evil has been done in the name of religion, and I'm not here to defend it. Evil is evil, whoever does it. And anybody who kills, tortures and maims people in the name of Jesus Christ is nothing but a liar and an imposter, because that has got nothing to do with the Christian gospel. And I'm quite sure that other people in other faiths would say the same thing. In fact, I've even heard Muslims say it. But this is where I think we need to take a cool look. You see, if we check through history, we will see that there is a thread of violence going through the whole of Muslim history. And yes, it happens other places, but it's consistent with Islam. And if you notice that there's a certain consistency of intolerance, is it really surprising that a faith that has spawned people that get upset about a cartoon which was produced in a non-Islamic country for a non-Islamic audience, that there should be protests and death threats against cartoonists? Do you remember the big fuss about Salman Rushdie and the satanic verses? And he had to have a police guard put on to protect him from all the threats of violence. And where did the violence come from? Did it come from Al-Qaeda? No, it didn't. It came from other Muslims. You see, there is this very short fuse in the Islamic makeup that makes them uncomfortable neighbours. Now, I don't think that's a question of respect or disrespect, but I'm not stupid. And I actually don't think that people in the world are stupid either. Because if we put all this together and we see what is happening, then I believe we have a crisis in Islam. Because I actually don't believe the people anymore who stand up and say, oh, but Muslims, Islam is a peaceful religion, I'm actually reading the Quran at the moment, and I'm not too sure that it actually speaks to me a lot of peace. It talks about a lot of other things, but I don't get this feeling of peace coming through. And I think that somebody has put one over the vast majority of Muslims in the world, and that is that they belong to a friendly, happy, honourable, peaceful religion, when in fact it's anything but. I can tell you, in the UK, they don't put police protection on people ad lib. We can't afford it. It's only when it's just really seriously needed. I think it's appalling when you get that situation where people from one faith cause that to happen to somebody in another faith, certainly in a free society. I think it is immeasurably worse when you take mentally disabled people, strap bombs to them, and then blow them up in the midst of crowded markets. That brings depravity to even greater depths than they've managed to achieve already. The crisis in Islam is this: how can anyone take the philosophy seriously when it shows itself purely red in tooth and claw? And I think that that's something that is for Muslims to address. But as far as the rest of the world is concerned, I think that the jury's no longer out on the situation with Islam. It is a very strange and peculiar faith that would suggest that it's there to enhance life and yet destroy so much of it. And please, let us have no more about how beautiful Islamic architecture is and how wonderful their tiles are and all the rest of it. There have been very few times in history when Islam has been peaceful. And when men are in peace, all men of all creeds can produce the most wonderful buildings and works of art and music and so forth. So please, there's nothing special in that. That's just part of the creativity that is inborn in humans when they're left to live their lives in peace and to express their love of life in their own particular way and to the understanding of their own particular philosophy. So folks, there we have it. And remember, there is a crisis in Islam, and the crisis is a total loss of identity. Because on the one hand, we have people saying it's peace, but on the other hand, we see nothing but blood and violence.